You're kneeling by a river at dawn. The water's cold on your hands. Your daughter's got a fever, 3 days now, and the healer already tried the roots, the smoke, the songs. Nothing. So the old man in the fur cloak looks at you, and he doesn't say sorry. He says the sky is angry. He says the river wants something back. And everyone in the circle turns and looks, not at the healer, not at the old man, at your daughter. You feel it before you understand it, that cold thing crawling up your spine, because you already know what the river wants something back means. It means blood. It means her. And here's the part that'll keep you up tonight. This wasn't rare. This wasn't one crazed tribe on the edge of the world. Across nearly every ancient culture on Earth, people did this on purpose, believing it was mercy. Human sacrifice wasn't madness. It was, terrifyingly, logic. Now, think about your version of a bad day. The storm knocks out your power. The the grocery store is closed. You're annoyed. You light a candle, you scroll your phone, you wait for the lights to come back. You never once think the universe is personally furious with you. You never wonder what you did to make the sky do this. That gap right there is everything. Because for most of human history, there was no such thing as a random disaster. The drought wasn't weather. The plague wasn't bacteria. The failed harvest wasn't bad luck. Every catastrophe was a message. Someone up there, or down there, was displeased. And if a powerful, invisible thing was angry enough to starve your entire village to death, you didn't wait it out. You paid it. And the most valuable currency a desperate human being could offer wasn't gold, wasn't grain. It was another human being. So here's what I want to prove to you today. Human sacrifice wasn't born from cruelty or insanity. It was born from love, fear, and a completely rational attempt to control a world that felt utterly out of control. The first one is fear of nature. Pure, physical, life or death fear. Imagine a drought that's lasted 2 years. Your reservoirs are cracked mud. Children are dying quietly in their sleep. You have no science, no weather map, no explanation. All you have is a desperate theory. The gods that give rain have stopped giving. At Chichén Itzá in Mexico, the Maya threw offerings and people into the Sacred Cenote, a natural sinkhole 70 feet across. Divers in the early 1900s pulled up gold, jade, and the bones of dozens of victims, many of them children. Picture that. A deep green pool, still as glass, and beneath it, generations of the drowned, sent down to beg the rain god Chaac for water. The second one is fear of the dead, and the terrifying idea that death was a journey you couldn't take alone. If a king died and crossed into the next world, he'd need his servants, his guards, his wives. So they went with him. Not metaphorically, physically. At the Royal Cemetery of in Mesopotamia, excavated by Leonard Woolley in the 1920s, one tomb held a queen surrounded by dozens of attendants. Soldiers, musicians, women in headdresses of gold and lapis lazuli. They'd laid down in neat rows. Recent CT scans of the skulls suggest many were killed with a sharp blow to the head. They dressed in their finest. Then they died on schedule, so a dead royal wouldn't be lonely. And the third one, maybe the worst, is the belief that the world itself was hungry. That the sun wouldn't rise, the seasons wouldn't turn, and time itself would stop, unless it was fed. The Aztecs believed their sun god, Huitzilopochtli, needed human hearts to keep moving across the sky. At the Templo Mayor in what's now Mexico City, archaeologists uncovered the Huehuetzompantli, a massive rack and towers built from tens of thousands of human skulls, drilled and threaded like beads. Row after row of faces staring outward. Not a warning, not a trophy wall. A cosmic engine in their eyes, keeping the universe from going dark. So, what did all three of those fears actually run on? Belief. Not weapons, not walls, belief. The shared, unshakable story that the invisible world could be bargained with, and that a life was the only offer big enough to matter. That's the engine underneath all of it. Because think about what you're really doing when you sacrifice a person. You're taking the single most precious, irreplaceable thing your community has, a living human, and you're destroying it on purpose. That only makes sense if you genuinely, deeply believe it buys something bigger. And we have the physical proof that this belief was real and old. Meet the bog bodies of Northern Europe. Toland Man, found in a Danish peat bog in 1950, is over 2,000 years old. His skin, his stubble, the peaceful look on his face, all preserved. And around his neck, a braided leather noose. He was hanged deliberately and placed in the bog with care. Not dumped, placed. Researchers believe he was an offering. Lose that belief, and none of it happens. Keep it, and a gentle-faced man lets you put a rope around his neck. But here's the part nobody talks about. This horrifying practice may have accidentally built civilization. Stay with me, because to sacrifice a human on a schedule, to know exactly when the sun god needs feeding, you need to track time. You need calendars. You need to read the stars, predict the solstice, count the days with terrifying precision. The Maya obsession with sacrifice drove one of the most accurate calendar systems in the ancient world. Astronomy, mathematics, the concept of zero, sharpened by the need to keep a cosmic appointment. And it goes further. Organizing a mass sacrifice requires priests, hierarchy, record-keeping, monumental architecture to do it on. Some anthropologists argue that the need to perform these rituals together is part of what glued strangers into cities. The very thing that looks like our darkest impulse may have quietly handed us writing, math, and the first great temples. Horror and progress tangled at the root. Go back nearly 10,000 years to Çatalhöyük in Turkey, one of humanity's first towns. Beneath the floors of houses, people buried their dead, some skulls plastered and painted to look alive again. The line between the living, the dead, and the offered was blurry from the very beginning. Jump to around 4,000 years ago in the Andes of Peru. At sites tied to later Inca practice, archaeologists found capacocha, child sacrifices carried high into the mountains. The frozen Yuyayako maiden, discovered in 1999 at 22,000 feet, is so perfectly preserved you can see her eyelashes. Chemical analysis of her hair shows she was fattened and fed coca and alcohol in her final months. Move to Carthage in North Africa around 2,700 years ago. The Tophet burial ground holds thousands of small urns filled with the cremated remains of infants. Roman writers claimed the Carthaginians sacrificed their own children to the god Baal-Haman. For years, scholars doubted it, until the sheer scale of tiny bones made denial hard. Now China, the Shang dynasty, over 3,000 years ago. At the royal tombs of Anyang, archaeologists found thousands of sacrificial victims, many beheaded, buried in pits alongside kings and oracle bones. The bones themselves carry inscriptions asking the ancestors how many humans to offer. And back to Northern Europe's bogs. Beyond Toland Man lies Lindo Man, found in England in 1984. He was struck on the head, strangled, and had his throat cut. 3 deaths in one. Researchers call it overkill, a ritual so deliberate it left nothing to chance. So why does this show up everywhere, in cultures that never met? In 2016, an anthropologist named Joseph Watts, working with a team at the University of Auckland, published a study in the journal Nature. They analyzed 93 traditional Austronesian cultures across the Pacific, and they found something chilling. Human sacrifice wasn't random. It tracked tightly with social hierarchy. The more rigidly stratified a society, The sharper the line between the powerful and the powerless, the more likely it practiced human sacrifice. Their conclusion? Sacrifice wasn't just about the gods. It was a tool, a way for elites to terrify everyone beneath them into obedience, to carve social classes in stone, using blood as the chisel. Fear of the gods and fear of the men who claimed to speak for them turned out to be the same fear. And now the part that lives inside you. You think you're immune to this. You're not. Because that ancient instinct, the one that says give something up to make the bad things stop, is still running in your head right now. Ever bargain with the universe? If she pulls through, I swear I'll be a better person. Ever knock on wood after saying something hopeful? Ever feel that irrational pull to sacrifice a comfort, sleep, food, money, to somehow earn a good outcome you can't control? That's it. That's the exact same wiring. The instinct to trade something precious for safety, to appease an unseen force when you feel powerless. You don't throw jade into a cenote. You give up dessert before a big test. Smaller stakes, identical impulse. The ancient priest and the anxious modern human are running the same ancient software. So go back to that river at dawn. Your daughter, the old man in the fur cloak, the circle of faces turning toward the one thing you'd give anything to keep. Now you understand what they understood. It wasn't cruelty. It was a drought that wouldn't break. A dead king who couldn't travel alone. A sun they were terrified would never rise again. It was calendars and cities and the birth of writing. It was priests turning fear into power. And it was you, knocking on wood, bargaining with a universe you can't see. We didn't sacrifice because we were monsters. We sacrificed because we loved, and we were afraid, and we needed to believe the trade would work. The gods went quiet a long time ago, but the part of us that still wants to pay them, that never left.